take into consideration the naming thing, uh, the rise of monkey head peacock. Is that it?
Yep, that's what we're going with.
All right. I'll remove all
Uh,
those like euphemisms and everything. And I'll speak like an adult.
ah, just go for it. Everything
No.
else doesn't matter. So, do you mind introducing yourself real quick for everyone?
So I assume we're recording now. So I'm Dr. Christopher Peacock, and I am a IT professional.
That's it? IT professional? Is that what you say with 20 plus years or 30 plus years of IT
40.
experience and 40 years of IT experience in
Yes.
various different
Yes.
areas from AI to software development to everything else in between?
Yep.
CIO level, so
Yep. I am.
executive as far as actually developing teams together to complete projects, right?
I
That's
actually,
that's IT professional is crazy.
no, that's all I say. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'm the IT guy.
Very
What
well.
am I say? I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and everybody gets all these swelled heads and everything. I don't. I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I'm here for a reason. I provide a service. I have a skill set, and that's what I offer. Now, I happen to go across lanes a lot of time. I mean, if you know that term, but that's what you do when you get to be sea level.
Yeah.
You have to. You'd be able to play in all aspects. But fine.
Is there a specific project or maybe like top three from your career that you're the most proud of or you found the most excitement in?
The only one that truly excites me to some degree, only because it was literally the first one I'd done for an independent client. The company's name was HireSmart. Pretty sure they're still around. And it was putting in place a distributed network environment. They had a lot of independent entities per se, but they're all one company. I put in place a distributed network with all that means, so they were able to real time collaborate across various regions. And that was the first time I had done it for a client as an independent provider. I mean, I'd done something similar for some of the larger companies for Fortune 100s, 500s, stuff like that. But this is the first time I did it for a small organization. I was actually very proud of it. I provided 3 different options depending on budgetary constraints and timing constraints. I was proud of that. Yes, that was a few years ago, but for some reason I was happy about that. I don't know.
Hmm.
That
Well,
was the step to be a big boy.
I got you. Because previous to that, you were internal to large companies, right?
Yes,
So, like, just to make sure I'm tracking. So, you were a part of like large organizations, but then this is your first time, kind of like the entrepreneur spirit kind of kicked into a new gear where you really started working independently, essentially, as like an independent contractor versus like a W-2 employee working with a larger company.
basically. I had been an entrepreneur before. I mean, I actually one of my first jobs was my own company. It failed, but the next 3 failed. But that's beside the point. But I was doing a lot of Department of Defense contracts and things along those lines, and then I had actually was working for just prior to me doing this, the particular job I was talking about. I had been middle management for Cigna Healthcare, regional, but still. And then when I stepped away from that, 1 second, please. My son's talking in the background. Sorry, but this was actually, I guess, I'm not more along those lines because I was trying to start to create. I was actually becoming aware of branding and things along those lines. And this is my first foyer into that arena because per this conversation or the scope of this conversation, I had been doing network engineering, things along those lines. And I prided myself on being the one to contact if you want something solved. But now I was trying to brand myself as a person to come to for anything. And I felt that when I provided this to the client, it was above and beyond what they even asked for. And that's the reason I was so proud of it, because I took in consideration so many different variables that they'd even missed. I went off on the deep end for a little bit there, but sorry.
No, all good. So your background originally, 40 years ago,
Yes.
what did that look like? Like, what was you first getting your foot in that niche of IT?
I was actually mainframe. I know you don't hear that very often anymore. It's still around. It's still a big player. It really is. But I was dealing with larger mainframes. I don't even tell you. I won't even tell you the model.
No, I want to hear it. What model?
43XX systems, IBM.
I know IBM. That's the only thing out of that name that I got.
Reel-to-reel tapes and stuff along those lines. We'd actually just gone to the 6-inch cartridges, etc. And then you also had memory trays, and this was old school stuff. That's how I first got into being a W-2 employee in the IT arena. And I foresaw the direction toward distributed networking and stuff along those lines. I saw it coming. True, about 4 or 5 years after I got in the field, but we can't all be whatever. But so I saw where it was going. So I was trying to direct my career into being a network engineer because I saw that's where it was going to go. I started out, my entrepreneurial venture was as a software developer. I developed a game, a bulletin board system game, but it was still a game. And I was very proud of that. It was Dimensional Playgrounds. I can even remember the name. I remember specs and everything still. I still have the diagrams if you want to see them. But
I would be interested. That's cool.
unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the client base quick enough to support myself. And truthfully, everybody cannot forget you got to feed yourself. I mean, the pie in the sky is all wonderful and everything like that. You have bills to pay, though. And eating is important.
Man, that is entrepreneurship 101. Always
It
make sure
is.
your home is taken care of. Like, if you don't do that, you cannot do anything else.
You could, but everything will suffer. I mean, one of the first things that I impart to other people, pearls of wisdom per se, is just like you said, you have to cover yourself, your responsibilities, your family. Otherwise, you can't do the job. And then the next step, even more granular than that, is you better have a financial plan in place. You have to have fallback and contingencies. You have to make sure that no matter what happens, you're not going to be on the street. Don't go there.
Yeah.
That's another topic, totally. But
So go ahead. Starting mainframe and then going into the networking side. Did you enjoy one more than the other? Or was it just like you saw that this is where IT is moving towards, and so you wanted to get on the train fast? Or did you actually like enjoy it? It became a passion kind of thing.
define passion.
That is tough. That is tough. Doing something that you would do even without getting paid. I view that as
Right.
passion. If you like it enough to do it without the paycheck, then you're passionate about that thing.
Okay, now that's a couple of things you said are very specific, and they actually touch upon me or how I act. Now, the software, I was great at it. Honestly, I had to step away because it gave me migraines. I just got too much into the weeds, and it gave me headaches. And so when I saw that was the case, I started focusing on the networking infrastructure because that was just becoming a thing. We're talking the 90s, the early 90s. Actually, let me rephrase that. We're talking the 80s, the mid to late 80s. Oh, that was a long time ago. But anyway, so I saw where that was going, and I myself decided to round out my skill set, and I became an electronic engineer because I obviously knew the software. And even though it is childlike now compared to what we can do now, then it was cutting edge. I mean, when you're talking about graphics with peaks and pokes and stuff like that, real old school stuff. I mean, I actually did a lot of coding in machine language. But anyway, that you don't touch upon as often now. There are specific niches in the industry you do, but I saw that I need to round out the hardware side, what I know about that, because I didn't know as much because it wasn't offered in school and stuff like that. So I embarked from being a government computer operator to becoming a hardware contractor. And I immersed myself 100%. I still did occasional some of the other stuff because you can't, well, you can, but you shouldn't, in my opinion, limit yourself to one thing. You have to, it's all about delivery. Even back then, even back in my early 20s, I knew it's all about delivery to the customer. They're going to pay the bill. So you better make them happy. And oh, look, they're having a so-and-so problem with some spreadsheet. I could fix that for you. Just a second. You fix it. Now, when you started putting in place the hardware and stuff like that I was expanding my skill set in, I mean, just I had went from super software side to literally component level engineering. I mean, I could design and build something from the component level or even lower, actually, but we won't go there. And that was cool. And then there was a military conflict going on. So I joined the Army and I was a tactical electronic engineer. So I kept doing my focus on rounding out my hardware side of understanding. And then when I could fix anything electronic, that was my job in the Army. Anything electronic I could fix, period. Anything. But now they've actually limited the skill sets and the jobs within the service. When I did it, I literally could fix anything. Now, my job has been broken down to like 16 different MOSs. Very limited in the scope and what to deal with. So then after that, and I got out of the service, we won't go into that song and dance, but I had then rounded myself out. And then I became a network engineer. I took the title and everything. And just a few years after I got out of the Army, one of the jobs that my MOS, my mission occupation specialty, became was network engineer. I said, hey, so I wasn't very stupid. But then that's what I did. And I did that for a couple decades. And I felt it was getting limiting, though. I mean, just to segue into my transitions toward the future, it was getting limited. If I can fix it in 5 or 10 minutes, call the manufacturer. And I'm not exaggerating. I would know what a problem is within 5 or 10 minutes. If I couldn't fix it, I knew what it was and how to fix it. And that's software and hardware. With the focus on the network infrastructure side of things and the back end infrastructure, that was my thing. And then I foresaw that this is kind of like honestly getting boring. It was just too easy. Because you're saying the passion, that was kind of the passion because to me it was easy. It's the way I think. I see it. And that's the reason why I can fix almost anything because I see the problem. Behind my eyelids or in my mind's eye, I have already reversed engineered most likely what it is. Even if I didn't know it, if I did not know the core technology that was behind it, I understood the theory. And so I can say most likely it's something like this. And most of the time I was right. And then I realized it's not just all about you, it's all about the team. I was growing up, and it is about the team. Maturity level, it's not just you, you have your job, but if the team doesn't function, typically the project doesn't get completed. And so I felt that it was up to me to enlighten, in a polite way, all those around me on where things were and how everything worked. And then that kind of shifted into becoming a project manager. Now, a lot of this was kind of overlapping. I was an architect before I was an architect. And then I became a network architect and a technology architect and all those kind of bells and whistle words. And then that became the label per se in the industry. All I did was just change the label. I didn't change. What I was doing didn't change. But as you become a senior architect, you have teams. And once again, you have to make sure the team is functioning cohesively. And then you have to start worrying about how everything plays into the organizational infrastructure. It becomes a bigger picture thing. First off is the techie stuff, and then it's how it interacts with the other fields, the other aspects of an organization. How does the HR people play into it? Your specialty. How do you tie into the sales force in the front end? How do you tie into the distributed or the field-based individuals, contributors? It all becomes a big picture. And you're in the web of how you're dealing with everything spreads out. And then I became a manager and then I became a director. And without even thinking about it, it was just the transition, understanding how everything works. And then I became senior director level and then C level. I mean, first off, I was a chief architect because really a chief architect is just the C level, but you're a tech. You are still viewed as an individual contributor. And you typically don't have any true people responsibilities. You still do because the team's the team. And even, okay, people management comes into play more and more as you see how what you do impacts the organization. I'm lecturing a little bit. Please forgive me, but
No, you're a professor. That's what I'd
I
expect.
am a professor, but you have to understand people, and to be more effective, people are a resource. They really are. Just like a wrench or a scope or whatever, they're a resource too. And it's really, what can I get from them? I know that sounds really cold, but it's true. They are a resource like anything else. But the thing is, they're a little more temperamental because they're people. And people have their own sweet points or soft points or things you use to motivate them. And you just end up doing it without thinking about it. Otherwise, you're not a very good leader. If you're not doing it instinctively, or at least have a functional plan in your mind that you're going to implement when you start talking to somebody in a certain way, Honestly, I don't think you'd make a very good leader. You just won't. You have a hard time motivating people. Just when I'm around people, me as a person, I motivate people because I don't like to label everything passion, all that kind of stuff, but that is my thing. It's all about solving a problem, and I can solve problems. Now, and that became a thing. I can solve problems. Have a problem, come to me. But in the people, it's the same thing. You have to learn how to drive them, motivate them, inspire them. And if you can do that without effort or subconsciously, which I think I can, I hope, but I haven't heard otherwise. How's that? Then you become more of a leader, I forgot the new buzzwords about the type of leader where you basically you lead through your passion. There's a phrase for it. I forget what it is right now. There is, but that's me. And now it is a thing. I mean, you still have the old school managers and stuff like that. Yeah, they still exist. You can't get away from them. There is a niche for them as well. There are specific parts of a business which they thrive in. Now, when it comes to providing next steps, future transitions, future scoping, if you want to say, you come to somebody like me. And that's honestly, that really is something that excites me.
Yeah.
I like to see that. What can I do to not just provide something, but make things so much better? It's a side benefit. The company makes money. I don't really care. It's all about this is something cool.
Yeah.
And I had to ratchet it back a little bit or limit a little more so because I used to stay up really late doing this stuff, building my little widgets, my networks and stuff like that. It was overtaking my entire life, so I had to ratchet it back a little bit. So there are so many more things to just being in the mix per se. Because just like the transitioning to sea level, by the way, that's actually another conversation as well. You're going to talk to management structure and stuff along those lines because sea level is not always the case. It depends on the organization. Just FYI. But you had thrown out there about being a professor. I actually am a professor. I am Dr. Peacock, and I do teach about 30 or 40 classes. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but that's a lot.
A lot. You teach 30, 40 classes right now?
I am
Or
eligible.
like,
I am
okay.
eligible for the university which I support.
Mhm.
I am on the books to be able to teach 39 classes of different types. Now, some of them I'm better at than others, I'll be honest. But there are a lot of the core curricula that I teach because they're in most of the programs. And so they need additional professors to handle the student overflow. As a part-time professor, because I'm just going to do part-time, I don't want to do full-time. I'm doing it for a personal reason.
Mm-hmm.
When I became a doctor, I'll complete the other conversation, but when I became a doctor, I didn't like how a lot of universities taught things as though they're in the ivory tower. There was the pristine thing and all that kind of stuff, and it's all about the theory. The
Yeah.
theory is all
Academia rules all.
yes, and I disagree. Academia had the same problem that IT in general has, where they think because I'm IT, I rule the organization. Everybody comes to me, bow at my feet. Without payroll, without human resources, without all the others, IT has no purpose. You can't forget that. And academia did the same thing. It all became, well, the theory behind and blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's all important because that is part of being a doctor. I have a PhD. It is a doctor of philosophy. Philosophy's in the PhD title. But you can't forget the real world. You're going to have to deal with the cutting edge stuff. You're going to have to deal with the mundane, as it were. You're going to have to deal with the legacy systems, the older stuff. It's still out there. The transition takes 10 to 20 years sometimes to get rid of some of this stuff. Some of the mainframe stuff that I worked on is still around. It's scary, but it's still around. I actually even ran into somebody just a couple of days ago. They brought up microchannel, the whole IBM platform. Oh, this was before plug and play. There was microchannel because it was IBM's attempt to address the plug and play aspect. Techie people understand what I'm talking about, but
I'll say I got nothing. I don't know what microchannels are.
But that was just a couple of days ago. I said, really? They're still using that? I thought those are all put to rest, as it were. But, and you cannot forget. And so anyway, my point that I was getting to was when a friend of mine said, we happen to have too many students enrolling, we need some more professors in information technology. Would you mind teaching a few classes? Sure, I'll do that. A few classes, no big deal. And so that was 8 years ago. And I said, I don't want to do more than 1 or 2 classes at a time because I have other things I'm doing, right? And so that's all I do. I teach 1 or 2 classes a semester. That's it. And I pride myself on giving them a realistic image of the real world. This is what you're going to face. These are the difficulties which are going to be, you have to surmount them first to do your job, to do what you're going to school for. And now, a lot of students that I teach are not IT guys. They just happen to be a class that's required for your business degree or your management degree or your accounting degree. You know how you take those electives and stuff like that? A lot of the classes I teach are those because you get more students. But even in them, almost every semester, I have heard at least one person, at least one, I think I'm going to change my major to IT. And I say, really, are you ready for that? Even after all the things I told you, you're still going to, and they're like, yes, they see the dollar signs. They see the money. There is potential, but there is a lot of putting in your dues. Use an old term. It just, most times, it's just not handed to you. There are exceptions, I know, but I was in the trenches. Even though it doesn't matter what level I was at network engineer, it did not matter. Even when I was the senior guy, I still had to roll up my sleeves or change my shirt and crawl in crawl spaces and stuff like that. Or they were having a problem with information exchange or something like that. I had to say, hold on a second, let me take a look. And I sat down and I found the problem and I fixed it. Typically, it didn't take me very long, but that's beside the point. If you're not willing to put in the time and the effort, how are you going to become somebody that somebody comes to answer, to be the catch-all, to give all wisdom? Come to me on high, and I will disseminate wisdom to you. Sorry, I had this picture of the Dalai Lama come to mind. But anyway.
No, I mean, that's a very good point, though. When it comes to IT specifically, it truly comes down to what do you know that's relevant to the task at hand. Like, you can know everything about network, but if you're put into a security position, that information might not translate. And, maybe some of it will, but like you need to have the awareness at various levels if you want to succeed. And like you said, if you want to be the one that can answer the questions, if you want to be the problem fixer, the problem solver,
Yes.
then you've got to be adept at your role. And people, I think, underestimate what it takes to really be
Oh,
good at a job. Like
yeah.
hours, like genuinely hundreds of hours
I was gonna
in
say
a single,
years.
yeah, years of it just to be adept at a level where people are like, yes, they know truly what they're doing. And I think people right now leaving college, I think the realization has gotten a little bit more
Skewed.
concrete, but people understand now that leaving college, you don't truly know what you're doing. Like
No.
you leave college with the theory, but you don't really know what you're doing until you get a specific job in that field and you're like, shit. And then you got to deal with that.
The thing I was thinking, it all kind of ties together. There is an interweaving of everything. Now, when I mentioned about the people dealing and manipulating people or managing people, however you want to say it, because you do a little that you do. You have the difficult children, you have to manage them as well. But it's the same with your skill set. It's the same with your knowledge base. You have to be adept enough to know what you know and what you don't know. Because if you are the giver of wisdom, it doesn't matter how often that is true. The moment you say something stupid, people don't remember the other things.
Yeah.
They remember that
That's so
one
true.
time you fell on your face.
Yeah. That is so true. It's crazy how accurate that is. You could be right 99 times, but they're going to remember that one that you were not. And they're going to be like, can't
Yes.
trust them anymore.
I've been with companies, okay, because of the level I reached and my ability to solve problems, I have moved around a lot, which creates other problems. Career wise, that does create other problems because then you have to learn how to manage expectations. And that's just in terms of potential employers as well. You got to manage their expectations also. But I will solve everything, and then I run into one problem and I can't overcome it, or I can't solve it fast enough for the stakeholders. Suddenly, Peacock failed. It doesn't matter that you burn the midnight oil per se, or put in major hours doing this. It didn't matter that if they'd given you just a couple more days, you would have completed or at least had the first version. It did not matter. You didn't have it on D Day, the final day. You failed. Project X, you failed. And then they turn around and they give it to a team with sufficient resources, and they finish it in 1 week or a few 3 or 4 days. And then they say, see, it can be done. But they forget the weeks or months of effort that you put into putting things in place. Mm-hmm. That the other team just built off of that. And they did it with a team of 6 or 7 with money, with funds. But they succeeded. And in everybody's view, they are the golden child. Not you. I've had things like that happen several times. And even in one case, I got laid off. And I said, you're lost. I gave him a list of things to be careful about, my warnings. I said, thank you very much. Goodbye. And honestly, I had a job the next day. Because as you said about you coming out of college and they're starting to realize that it's just not the end all. It never has been. It doesn't matter what your degrees are and stuff like that. What are you going to do with it? Mm-hmm. How nimble is your mindset? Because you are a tool as well. Can you hone your skills to recognize what you know, what you don't know? Some people can't. I don't want to be a naysayer, but some people can't.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
need to
true.
pick what they can do and focus on it. And sometimes someone can become the end all also, but it takes time. It is what is your own journey. Everybody expects certain things when they say you're an IT professional, you know this, this, and this. I do happen to know a lot about a lot, but that's only because I've been doing it for so long. And as an independent, because I was an independent consultant for almost 3/4 of my career, you have to be able to do that because that's how you get paid. That's how you make any money. And I want to feed myself. You know? And it's not just feed myself; it's feed my family. They're important too, kind of. But uh, you don't just get this piece of paper. Now, there's the debate on which is more important: experience versus degrees versus certifications. It depends on the person. It depends on the regulations involved in your industry or your vertical, this particular the work vertical you're in. It depends. I mean, some of those certifications are good because you can get somebody on board really quickly to take care of a problem, to check those boxes because they have the certifications which technically, the air quotes, prove that they know something. It's not always the case, by the way, because you can be an incredible test taker and have all kinds of certifications and know nothing.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to degrees. Honestly, I wasn't. I was a decent student, but I wasn't great. Yeah, I got like A minuses, B pluses, stuff like that. But that's just because who I am. And some people made me feel foolish. But when it came down to turning that knowledge into something, I left them standing in the dirt or standing in place because they couldn't do that. So it's a give or take. And then you got those where they have the experience under their belt. Once again, it comes down to the personality driving that knowledge. Just because you have the experience, how do you face something unexpected? So it's kind of a mix of all of them, the best, in my opinion, because you have to understand the theory. I happen to have experience after years. I got the experience now, but that didn't immediately happen with me. Mine became I had the willingness to do anything, the willingness to fail and trial and error. Learn how to hide your mistakes. Because trust me, I made them. And you make sure you didn't do anything egregious so that it came back on you. This people thing again. It's all about managing expectations. A skill upon itself. And so then I had 10 or 12 years of experience, honestly, before I decided I needed to get some degrees. And there was a hit or miss for a few years. And because I foresaw how getting that piece of paper, per se, to use the acronym, to get that piece of paper, it was becoming more and more necessary if I wanted to move into guiding an organization, into management. They typically want that piece of paper.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I think people don't understand is getting experience first. One, you find out if you like it or not, because you don't get that from school. So you find out if you like it, you find out if you're any good at it, actually doing the job itself, not just sitting in a classroom learning about it. And then you can see the different paths in front of you while sitting and while getting paid.
Yes.
I think people don't get that anymore. Like, yes, go out, do the job first. And then, like you said, once you get a decade in, 5 years in,
Even
then
5.
you can decide, do I want to advance in this career? Do I want to switch tracks? And then you do that with the knowledge of already having a few years, building up your resume a little bit from the drop. I think people jump right into college
Yeah, they
and then they
expect
invest
immediate
all this money.
gratification.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then they end up hating it anyways. So like literally all this debt
If you
for nothing.
if you put time into it, that's one of the reasons why, like I said, with the ivory tower thing, I'm gonna let them know what the real world is, what to really expect. I mean, I try not to give them the horror stories. I got them, but I at least try to give them something negative, because it's not all about puppy dogs and unicorns. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah,
really
no.
not. That's an old
Setting
phrase, but
expectations.
you
Yeah,
know,
setting expectations is really important.
you do. And when you first start out, honestly, it's difficult. It is, because you got to really commit yourself. And if you commit yourself and you turned out that, oops, I made a mistake, do it before you waste too much time.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there that you could be doing. I mean, honestly, I was a triple major. I couldn't totally decide what I want to do initially, because I was so good at several things. And then it turned out that I excelled at IT. And I didn't know where IT was going to, what information technology was going to become. I had no idea. We're talking 1983 and 82. Who the heck knew this? I mean, because it existed, but it wasn't the thing, right? And I thought it was neat. And then it turned out that I had that quote unquote passion. I never really called it that, honestly, but and then it became what I did. And then I got paid for it. Holy moly. I could go to work and do the same thing, get paid. Whoa. And then I got the team dynamic started coming into play as my career moved on. And I loved working with the other people in the field. And then as I matured as a professional and person per se, I loved dealing with people in total, of what I could give them. And it was nice that I was able to fulfill their needs at the same time of getting paid once again. So, and then, and then honestly, it comes down to a numbers game here. You can make a lot of money as an individual contributor. I use that term again. You can. I have. As the subject matter expert, which I am in several things, you can get paid some big dollars. But that is very ivory tower, and it's very specific. And it's harder to find those little gigs, per se, or contracts or jobs. And then once you do it, if you're not good at anything else, what if that need goes away? You typically go away too. That's actually one of the reasons why I became a consultant, because a lot of my best skill set was solving problems that are not consistent or ever existing. They're temporary until you fix the problem, and then the company doesn't think they need you anymore until they have a problem again. That happened a lot. I worked myself out of jobs a lot. But when you have that subject matter expertise in certain things, you can get some big dollars. But then that's where it comes into the numbers game, which I was just talking about. If you have the technical understanding, as well as the people skills, as well as the organizational and the planning and all the others, semi-number stuff again. If you tie all that stuff together and you have many people working for you, if you manage it right, if you set your positioning right, you make more money.
Yeah.
And you do less work. Because it's not about how much you can bring to the table. I see a lot of times you become a mentor. I see things, I say, you might want to try that. Once again, it's people management again. Once try that, just an idea, throw it out there and walk away. Because they have to mature as professionals as well. And then as they increase in their skill set, your toolbox expands. They don't seem to realize that. You then have more skills you can tap upon and less things that you have to do.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a real thing that I think people don't understand. And then when they have to go through that switch, it's kind of hard to deal with. Like
Yes.
the entry level to mid level is just work, 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 work. It's all about
Yep.
output. Like how much output can I as an individual do?
Yep.
And then you get to the next level as like a supervisor, and then you start kind of managing more people, but you're pretty much still in it. Work, 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 work. How much output can I do? And then as a manager, then that's the first time where you're really like, okay, let me see how much output my entire team can do. But you're still kind of in it. I think it's not until you really go strategic or, like you say, where it's high level problem solving,
Yes.
like those 2 points, it's crazy how little work is done at that top. But every time you do work, it's like a
Make it work.
10x. Yeah, it's like a 10x or 100x of the output that would have normally been done. Like that's the difference, is that it's not so much of output every second of every day. It's when I do make an output, when I do make a strategic change, when I do fix a big problem, like that fix, that's where the 10x comes from. And that's where that paycheck comes from.
Well,
So
yeah, it
that's,
becomes
yeah.
self-sustaining, and you save time. My biggest offering is how much time can I save you to reach your goals? Because the faster you get there, the faster you start making turnaround or money. And then you become a company. Then you become an offerer per se, or a vendor or whatever. And then the bucks come in. You hope.
Right. That's the thing with entrepreneurship. You hope. You got to set everything up, you got to do the output, and then you just got to hope.
Because there are even at the director level or the C level per se. Okay, to clarify, I am a chief innovations officer or chief digital officer, which is one of the new ones, or chief artificial intelligence officer. That's the new buzzwords coming out. I actually I've done similar work, but just never had the title. But I have actually been the traditional CIO, chief information officer, and chief technical officer. Their focus is slightly different. And even at that, it depends on the company you're with. It depends on what your product is as a company as well, how hands-on you continue being. When you get, hopefully at a certain level, it doesn't always happen, that you become just a egghead per se, or a strategist or anything like that. That doesn't just instantly happen.
Mhm.
I mean, that that track record per se, you can be consistent. That becomes very important. I mean, and then the problem is, it's the pyramid thing again. I mean, you have the workers on the bottom, and you're up the top, and it's up to you to make sure all the people beneath you are pulling their weight,
Yep.
that the company sustains itself. Those are all skills upon it. These are all things that you don't learn until you go through it, or until you're faced with it. It's not just a gimme, it's just handed to you. I mean, like I said, this is experience, certifications, which is kind of in the middle, and the education. You have to have all of them in some way. You can succeed with just one. You can. It's just harder. It's just a lot harder. You can achieve that quote unquote success or that next level per se quicker if you have more of the components than just one.
Yeah. That
That's
definitely makes sense. I wanted to ask you, so seeing the trends of where we currently are here in 2025, what do you think are going to be the major niches here in 2026 and potentially for like the next 5 years?
that's super easy. You know, AI has been artificial intelligence and deep diving, all those kind of things have been around for decades. I was doing them 20 years ago. Now we just happen to have the platforms for them to really work on. People have to remember this did not happen magically. There's still a lot of work involved with making them work right. All these companies are trying to embrace these new trends, embrace them right. Don't just sign off on them. Make it really worth your time and effort to make it happen. And then when you do that, make sure it's doing what you need it to do. It's another resource. It's another thing in your toolbox. It's just not going to solve everything. Everybody forgets that. For the next 5 or 10 years, that's going to be paramount to make that a reality. And then we'll have to see, because this is going to speed things up. I mean,
Yeah.
it used to be every 10 to 12 years, IT, blah, blah, blah. And then it was every 7 years, you expect this. And then it was every 3 to 4 years. Well, now it's like every year. And even though that time cycle has sped up, even that's not consistent. You have to still do all the check marks. You have to still make sure, and then you have to touch back on all the stuff you've done before to make sure it's in line with your needs now. It's an ever-evolving thing, and you have to make sure that everything works together. And it's just now it's faster, but you can't forget that other. I mean, just because you're offering this, this, and this, a lot of people I've seen, they forget how it is that's being offered. They forget all the stuff that was put in place previously. That if you didn't have, what would be the point? Like I was saying, when you got the accounting, the HR, customer service, the maintenance people, and IT and management, all those little parts of the puzzle, it all has to work together. And then as this trends and technology speed things up, they still have to work together. It's just what you're offering might change slightly, and the dynamics change because you bring in sometimes external resources to take care of stuff because it's cheaper, more expedient, etc. But you still have to do that. You still have to enable your infrastructure, your internal entity, your organization, to deal with the external resources also. It is all a moving puzzle.
Mm.
And IT is just an extreme version of it. All the other arenas and all the other departments are what they have their own magic dust per se.
Yeah.
IT is just more visible, but they're all the same. And then all the groups have to know how to talk together and work together. Otherwise, you waste time, you waste energy. Now, that's me being a more seasoned professional. It all has to work together.
Yeah.
Now, I know that we're at the timeline here, but because I subconsciously keep track of these things.
Yeah.
But when you get in, like you had said, you have to make sure it's something you want to do, something that doesn't irritate you, at least at a minimum. If it irritates you, you're still welcome to go ahead and do it. It's on you. But then take ownership because you did it.
For sure.
A lot of people don't take ownership in their own actions.
Mm-hmm.
Everything builds upon everything else. It really does.
Yeah.
And you have to own it or embrace it because you made the decision. Don't allow external resources or forces to force you into something. Have the internal wisdom to at least guide where things are pushing you. You can't stop it. It's going to happen. But
Yeah.
you just kind of guide the way it's going. And then you know
That's
where you are and what you want to do, because it's going to take up a lot of your time. A large portion of your day is going to be at work,
yes.
and it becomes part of your life. And you got to understand time management. Get that under your belt quick. If you don't understand how to manage your own personal time and effort, you'll be run ragged. And then you get everybody else, you got to also tie them all in together. When you get that down and you manage things appropriately in terms of time, scoping, etc., then it doesn't impact your life, and then it becomes much more manageable. I use that word too many times, but it becomes just what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use different faces of Dr. Peacock, but it's true. But I switch between them without thought because one's needed for different situations. And then whatever you find is your best fit for you as a person and what you bring to the table, embrace it. If you see that you don't have all the skills necessary to take that next step, don't force it. You can if you want. That's on you once again. But if you find that you're great as just a semi-leader, be a team lead. There's a need for every layer. It's all a mini layered cake. It really is. And they're all necessary. And everybody has their thing that they bring to the table. And then you'll be happy. And then when you're happy, you're more productive. And it is no longer as much of an effort per se.
Mm-hmm.
And it really becomes an improved cultural experience. Throw in some more buzzwords, but
No, that's great advice. Like life advice in general.
it is.
That's right on the point. Not first off, time management is so critical. Like if you don't have it, you literally are unable to control what gets done. Like,
Yep.
and I think people underestimate just how valuable that one thing alone is. If I say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I look at my schedule for the week and I say this point, and this point are when I have time, and this is where I'm going to do it. I write out around how long I think it's going to take me to do, then there's no excuse. Like there is nothing stopping me from getting it done except for myself. And then, like you said, if we bring that personal responsibility in, there is nothing people cannot do. And they
There is
spend so much
unexpected.
time at work. Do
I have,
something you like. Like you spend
I have to
so
throw
much time doing it.
I have to throw it out there though. You got to remember there are things out of your control, and time management comes into it. You got to factor all these things in to then provide what you said, because then once again, it's on you. That's like I said before, expectation management is a skill.
Yep.
And it's not just expectations of others, it's expectations of yourself.
Oh yeah.
Because if you take it too much upon as I failed again, if you keep doing that consistently, who suffers? Well, everybody else too, but you too.
Yeah. For sure. If you can't take care of yourself, then you can't be a leader. Like that's the thing is
Yes.
you have to hold everyone accountable, but that starts with you. And that's such an important part that I think a lot of toxic leaders don't do. But the leaders that inspire, that they lead from the front, that they care about their team, they understand that everyone is different and they meet them where they're at to bring them up to the next level. Like that is what it's all about. But it truly starts with you. Like you cannot lead if you yourself are a piece of shit that can't hold true to your own words, that lie to yourself, that don't get things done. Like you have to fix you first. Like
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah, like like I said before, because I don't like to discount anybody, but there's a niche for everybody. I mean, you mentioned toxic. I've had a lot of those toxic leaders. I've had a lot of them. So that used to be the way things was done. I mean,
Yeah.
really. And honestly, it wasn't until the first few decades that became terminologies
Yeah.
as people were realizing what are the people getting per se. I mean, not to throw out some more warm fuzzy things, but it does come down to how much, how happy you want to be, or pleased do you want to be, and how much effort. And if you can do these things and you still be smiling, a real smile, then, then it's so much easier. You can achieve so much more than you even realize. Like I had said about that 5 or 10 minute rule, I was serious. And there's a whole lot of 5 and 10 minutes through a day.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta balance everything out and have a healthy tempo. You can do the back to back work, 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 work. You can do that. Some people prefer that because then they don't have to think. I please no. I prefer not to do that
I get it. I
because
think you've got to go through it. I think someone has to go through that phase to
yeah,
get through the other side, because you got to see where your limits are.
that's true. That's very true.
Mm.
And
But I
now,
do think it's a more entry level mindset
yeah,
of like,
it is.
just I'm gonna go as hard as I can all the time. Like you don't do that after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, as you had said, it's like no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I was talking to there are a few things that shift. Well, hopefully, or they can rephrase that. It depends on how you have positioned yourself. We won't get into the life planning stuff. That's a whole other conversation. But if you position yourself to maximize your strengths and what you bring to the table, then it really is easy. And then as you mature per se, or you, I don't want to say things like this, but as you get slightly older, I was talking to someone, they're like, well, as you get older, you want to do less. I don't. I don't. But that's a mindset.
Mm.
That's because I've already achieved the ability to realize that I don't have to be metal to the pedal at all times. Go, 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 go. That is not my most productive. If I find the speed which I can consistently go, I will achieve more in the allocated time. Time management again. And then, yes, you have those burst spurts and stuff like that. You do. It just happens. But you have these epiphanies sometimes too. But then the people are different on how those epiphanies occur. With me, they happen at the oddest times. But that's because I'm always thinking on many different levels at all times. It's just me. But other people, they happen to be whenever they're doing something really mundane, or they're cooking, or they're taking a shower, or they're doing the yard work, or they're sweeping, or they're sitting there watching TV or sports or something like that, or they're in the middle of a movie theater watching a movie. And that's the solution. I see it now. It happens at different places for everybody. But if you have not the ability to establish your own flow and time, it'll never happen. And even if you have those epiphanies, everybody has epiphany of some type or another. If you can't integrate it or intertwine it into what you're already doing, what's the point? You might as well have never had it. And I was saying about that, it does take all levels. I mean, there are some people that don't have those. There are people like that. That's not me, but there are people. There are some that have these great ideas about something very procedurally based. Hey, that's them. I mean, I get those too, but that's I they get it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we all bring to the table our strengths, and once we find what they are, we would recognize that in ourselves. Then we can embrace it and offer it to its full potential. If you don't, it's on you.
All right. Well, Dr. Pete, thank you so much for coming over. I truly do appreciate having you here on the podcast. We've worked together in the past, and I do consider you as a friend now. So I really am happy that we got to bring you on board and do this. And as long as you'll have me, I'd love to have you on again sometime.
So it all works. As I was saying before, a lot of these things are different topics, different venues. I was talking exclusively on those as well. I was trying to tailor it down to more IT specific, since that's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
But all the others
All
are
good.
true too. I'll even talk about them all, because hopefully what I've seen, these insights will trigger others and help the others grow.
100%.
It's not all
I
about
really
you.
appreciate it.
It's all about the community. All right.
All about me. Don't lie. Don't lie. I know that you're here for me.
It's funny you should say that. I am.